Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Pluritopia Biennale Symposium Day 2.
Hi everybody, what's up? I know it's a nice bright morning, but you're here with us and we want to say thank you. We have lots of people here, artists and everybody. We have more people on the YouTube. Right now, we are here to celebrate Symposium Day 2 from Pluritopia Biennale. Don't go anywhere. We have 2 fireside chats for you. And fireside chat means that we are going to have a little dialogue with our artists. Woohoo! Okay, let's introduce the first fireside chat 1. All right, embodied presence artist studio in the metaverse. Guess who do we have for you today? Miss Joanne Ho, also known as Jo Ho from Singapore.
Don't know if you can do a wave to everyone. Thank you.
Oh, I can do a dance.
Oh, thank you. Welcome. That's whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Really what's cool for morning.
Our cameraman is capturing all that. And then we have next for you, we have Debbie Ding from Singapore as well. Debbie, camera going to clear.
Hello. Hi.
That's really nice. And it's very special guest from Korea, Jin Song Jang. Hello, Jin Song Jang. Hi. And we are moderating for you, Spang and Lei, and then we have Janice Kim from Korea, our curator. Hi, Janice.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
So everybody, just let everyone know that today's symposium, Jin Song will be answering in Korean, and then we have Ki Hyung, our Miss Interpreter, at the back, interpreting our comments and his comments to us. All right, everybody. First thing first, Lei, what do you have for us?
So artists, okay, this panel or this fireside chat is called the Embodied Presence Arts Practice or Art Studio in the Metaverse. So beginning with this session, we just like to set a kind of like a direction for this discussion. We'd like to hear your thoughts and your feedback regarding building your cloud studios inside the Metaverse for the past couple of months, and especially when it comes to embodiment, meaning to situate yourself as an artist and not just as a physical artist, but in this case an avatar to represent you in the metaverse. How do you feel? What are your thoughts? So, okay, maybe let us have a little kind of a response from Joanne Ho first regarding your experience of building in the metaverse for your cloud studio. Joanne.
Yeah, sure. I guess like when I think about creating in VR space, usually when I create in VR space, it's usually virtual environments, and then I use game engines to create scenes, which I then export into like 360 footage. Then it gets transported into the real world, whether it's like screens or I also do it in VR headsets. So this is the first time that I've actually been in a space, creating a space for people inhabiting the space in VR like this as avatars, especially that it's so like interactive and multiplayer. So when I thought about it, I was thinking about the special aspects that this kind of like game-like environment can provide, which is, spawning, like you can't really die, right? But you can respawn, which I thought was really cool. So I tried to incorporate that in my studio as a form of like virtual embodiment, because you can't really do that in real life, like jump off a platform and then disappear and reappear somewhere else. So I was playing around with a lot of the virtual mechanics and like just gravity-less environments altogether. So a lot of things are, floating, which we can't really do in real life. So I tried to emphasize the elements that are available in virtual reality that aren't available in the physical reality.
That's really interesting. Can't really have things in real life. It almost seems like you're trying to uh, go beyond some sensorial, you know, encapsulations and trying to really push your art practice in the metaverse, because sometimes when we as digital artists deal with so many physical material, I mean, I know you're trained as an architect, if you don't mind me sharing.
Yeah.
So I can see that when you built your artist studio, it was almost something like a rebellion or antithesis towards what sometimes we architects have been trained. So that's really a nice encapsulation of your practice. Right. Thanks so much,
That's a
Joanne.
really nice insight. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. So when it comes to the concept of presence, the whole idea of where am I is often defined by like the point of view of the player or viewer in a virtual environment. Or inside Pluritopia, it's about the thoughts and views of the artist. So I'm going to throw the next question to Debbie. Debbie, yeah. As an artist, how does it feel to be inside this virtual studio?
Hello. So like you're asking about how it feels to be in this studio, or you mean in the different artist studios?
Inside your club studio, the train, you had a train which is
Yes.
quite different from the rest of the artists, it's a physical train.
Yeah.
So how does it feel as an artist to be in there in this virtual studio, compare that to a real life studio?
Yes, I think it's interesting because I think I'm thinking a lot about how to make a virtual place in a way. And it's really interesting hearing Jo speaking about her relation to the thinking of this exhibition, the virtual one, being something that also comes into the real world as an exhibition that you see in the physical exhibition, like in the art space, because I think for me, I had been thinking a lot about just this being the native medium for experiencing it, this being the end all, though the space of it being the defined kind of like I've been in a train, but now I'm going to make that work in something that replicates or attempts to replicate the reality. And I guess I think of the studio as a bit of an experiment, the train studio, the train world that I was making as a kind of experiment in trying to attain that reality. I suppose I wanted to see where exactly how to experiment with like that idea of that reality. How close do I want it to be to the real space? How far do I have to model it? How do I actually get to that, to an interesting point, where that replication of that reality is enough, for us to believe that I'm in a place or feel like that place becomes a bit like a memory palace, scattering the books around and all those things and other objects in it, are things also that you explore, thinking of it as storing all this information.
I just have to make a comment. For those who are actually in the Pluritopia Metaverse, do you realize that Debbie's what do you call it? Her cloud studio, her train cloud studio is actually the most realistic. But yet, because most of us, we don't really pursue realism, in Metaverse, but yet because of her own idealizations, she tries to create, just for this project alone, she tries to create very realistic renderings of her train, a place where Debbie is almost like a liminal space, because no one is there unless we have a touring. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a little bit like a in-between space, a liminal space where it's never, it's always about the journey, because it's a train in and of itself, a transportation capsule, never really, arriving or leaving, and it's just, you're just there. I mean, perhaps that could also tell our audience as, what kind of a practice she is right now, her mood and her stamong. Okay, fantastic.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to address the next question to Jing Song. How is your Pluritopia Cloud Studio an externalization of your real life studio? So maybe the interpreter can help with this part.
Okay. 저는 일단은 작업을 준비하는 과정에서 생기는 일종의 3D 드로잉이나 3D 모델링들을 통해서 만들어진 이제 가상의 실제 공간을 위한 가상의 작업들을 일단은 그대로 가져다 놓았고 동시에 이제 실제 영상 제작에서 사용되었던 애니메이션 데이터 그리고 지금 제가 지금 모습을 취하고 있는 이 캐릭터의 모습을 그대로 조금 옮겨보면서 실제 공간과 가상 공간과의 일종의 괴리나 그것들을 이어붙이는 약간 혼재할 수 있는 가능성들을 조금 시도해보았다고 할 수 있겠습니다.
As I was preparing for my work, what I get to do is to create 3D drawings or 3D models. So what I did was to place those 3D drawings and models in the place as if I would do it in the physical place. And also, in the case of the videos that I create animations and the characters of myself, and I moved those animation data and my character to the virtual space so that I can explore the possibility of coexistence between the real and virtual space by closing that gap.
Okay, thank you, Jin Song. I'm also interested that when you create your studio of itself, when you know the first question that was posed to you. However, how much of it is as an artist that uses that now uses the metaverse to do your practice also, how much is it that you want to share with your audience with this whole almost endless space technically that you can do it now? And just a quick question for Jin Song as to what is the kind of expense that you have? Is the whole studio really an embodiment of yourself or only certain parts? I know it's a subconscious conscious thing. Yeah. Thank you.
일단은 최근에 한 작업들을 위주로 일종의 배치를 해봤는데 제가 하는 거의 전부나 아니면 스튜디오의 전부를 옮겨간다기보단 여전히 이제 제가 예전에도 얘기를 드렸던 부분일 텐데 이 가상 공간들에도 여러 가지 렌더링 시스템에 있어서 모양들이 되게 바뀌기도 하고 뭐 색깔이나 머테리얼에 따라서 되게 다르라 보이기도 하는 그런 지점들이 조금 재밌기도 하고 또 일종의 극복해야 되는 일종의 시스템적인 문제일 수도 있다고 생각을 하는데 이제 그런 부분에서 사실 어느 만큼 이거를 뭐 메타버스로 옮겨가고 또 동시에 이것들을 실제로 가져올 건가에 대해서는 여전히 좀 기술적인 문제들과 뭐 혹은 제가 하는 작업들에 있어서의 그런 고민들은 계속 된다고 할 수 있을 것 같습니다.
So what I did was to place and transfer most of my recent works in the virtual space. I didn't necessarily try to transfer all of my works or the entirety of my studio to Metaverse. I think I talked about this in the past as well. But when you are dealing with virtual space, depending on the rendering systems that you get to use, some shapes might look differently, the color could change, and depending on the material that you use, things could look a little bit different, which could be an element of fun, and also it could be an element of quite a lot of interest. It could be an interesting element as well. And maybe that could also mean some systematic issues that we need to overcome. So to what extent of my work is going to be existing in the metaverse, and how much would I transfer that back to the real life? I think that has to do with the technical limitations that we need to overcome. And how much of it I would do in Metaverse, I think is something that I am continuing to find out myself.
All right, thanks so much, Jingso, for your response to that. So I'm going to address the next question back to Joanne Ho. The whole idea of embodiment, the feeling of being inside inside one's body, or controlling another body, in this case, your wonderfully expressive avatar, through a virtual avatar. How do you be there or practice in your studio?
Like in terms of practicing in my studio through an avatar.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, like, you know, this is first person, so this very much feels like when I'm like creating something in a game engine like Unity or Unreal, when I'm playing the file that I've made. So it doesn't feel that much different, but that's why my studio also has mirrors, because I'm like, okay, I'm actually in an avatar. I have like hands and stuff, though I'm doing this on a PC, so I don't really see my hands either. Like, I don't have a headset, so it's maybe less immersive for me. But I'm very much aware of my shadow whenever, like right now I'm looking at my shadow on the ground. Sometimes if I take on a different form, then I see my shadow becoming bigger, or if my avatar's really small, then I'm like really, really tiny. Like I have this one avatar that's a spider. Can I change avatars?
Please show us. Please show us. So we'd like to see your spider artist persona.
Okay. I'm gonna switch.
Okay, so while Joanne is finding her spider avatar persona, maybe I could just add on a little bit about. Oh, there she is. Okay. Hi.
Hello.
Would you like to like? How does it feel now that you're of this size or this scale?
I mean, it's really funny because when I play in VRChat in general, I like to change scales just to see how I'm in relation to the space around me. So right now, the cameraman is like crouched in front of me. It's really funny. And I don't know, it's like it helps with the embodiment of the avatar. And also the mirrors. The mirrors also help a lot. That's why in my own studio, I have like some recorded videos of me standing in front of a mirror and talking in different avatars as I feel within that given platform, like a different phase in my life. So yeah, this avatar is like really cute. It also makes like little sounds.
Wow. Okay, really cool. You know, I have a question, because in your cloud studio, we have to teleport ourselves through different platforms, kind of like spawning and dying in there. But having said that, at the moment we teleport from one to another, we get to see new works. When you were creating cloud studio, did you create it as your spider avatar, or do you have the human scale in mind?
Actually, I created with like a human avatar. So it was easier for me to see like what's the average experience. And then it was because the studio is really abstract, so things just either look bigger or smaller based on your avatar. So I didn't really play around with that, though I could. Like some Easter eggs, right? Like tiny spaces, tiny abstract spaces embedded somewhere in the platforms.
All right, thank you so much, Joel, for this very different approach to look at scale, you know, especially the importance of scales when building the world. I'm going to throw the same question to Debbie, 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 you just scale yourself. how
I
do you
made
feel?
myself tiny.
Yes, how do you be there or practice in this virtual cloud studio? How do you be there?
Yes. Well, my take on it is, I think of it as like a bit of like a prosthesis or something, you know, like that you gain something and lose something in the process of being able to be a tiny person, or you know, I could become a big person as well. I mean, be a big person. If I become a big person, a much bigger person, you know, being able to, I like what Joe was saying about the scale. I also like to be big person sometime and small person some other times to understand the scale of places. But also, I was really grateful to kind of build this thing, to experiment with it with the crane, and I realized there's a lot of different things that one can do in the game engine that you can actually play with a lot more. I've also thinking a lot about how you take the pictures. You can do all sorts of interesting things with how you actually see, and how you affect how people see in the virtual space. But of course, when you're making the model, when you make it in the game engine, there isn't you in it. When you make the world, you're not inside it. There's no character. I mean, it's all populated by us and our avatars now. But of course, that's a almost separate thing to the environment that we're building, which I think is always quite interesting. It's almost like you cut off your hand so that you have this fantastical, technological VR hand to wave and do all sorts of interesting hand postures. Like this. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So I guess there's actually always two parts when building in a metaverse. I like that of a real life studio because, like Joanne was mentioning earlier, you have to first build it in Unity or any 3D platform. Then you have to use the SDK. So that is actually partaking or creating as a human form, flesh in the flesh. Whereas the moment when you create it, after you created it, you go into your studio. In this case, you become the avatar. What was that transition like? Maybe I'm going to ask Joanne later on also. What was the transition like from dabbling in Unity or Blender or Unreal, and then going inside the place that you just built? Yeah, how does it feel? What was the takeaway?
I really love building in 3D. It's kind of the thing I want to do in the next few years as well. Obviously it's really immediate. You make it. You can even make a box or whatever, and then immediately go and see that box and pick it up and throw it already. So it's very gratifying, of course, as someone making it, but also the fact that I could tweak so much about my avatar. Like, I know we're talking about avatars, but in the background, you can separate it out to things like the camera and the eye, and the virtual eye. You could do so many weird things with it. Like, right now, I know, there are some technical or maybe even hardware things in the considerations. Like, some of us are on PC, some of us on, like, I'm on Android today. And some of the effects that you can do on certain hardware is pretty interesting. You could have very cinematic or filmic effects as well, in the game engine. And that's what, it's super interesting. I obviously haven't plumbed the depths of it, but realizing that there's a lot you can do, thinking about where the camera is, whether you want to have some Easter egg where you can, pull. For me also, like pulling out the thing, pulling out a book from behind you, or being able to see the camera from a different angle. These are all things you can play with, which you couldn't, but in the real life. But now you could change that about perception. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not just the perception of the artist alone, but also considering the participatory, the audience perception and their point of view as well. Thank you so much, Debbie. I'm going to ask Jin Sung the same question. Jin Sung, how do you be there or practice in your cloud studio? I do see this manifestation of different types of AI avatars in your current cloud studio, and the humanoid or the robot that you choose for your own avatar today. But how do you be there or practice in your studio?
일단은 조앤이 얘기했던 것처럼 사실 뭐 작가로서 이 플랫폼 안에 들어와 있는 저도 이제 PC를 사용하다 보니까 크게 달라지는 지점이나 막 그런 부분들은 없는 것 같기도 한데, 실질적으로 이거를 경험하는 사람보다는 만드는 사람들이 느끼는 경험이 더 다르다고 할 수 있을 것 같아요. 예를 들면 앞서 말했던 것처럼 저도 예를 들면 이 캐릭터들을 실제로 이제 언리얼 엔진에서 렌더링을 할 때 이 애니메이션들을 확인할 때 이제 다른 프로그램, 이렇게 캐릭터 크리에이터라는 프로그램 쓰는데 아이클론에서 이제 라이브 링크라는 링킹을 통해서 실제로 이제 애니메이션을 왼쪽에서 하고, 이제 빈 공간에서 이제 애니메이션을 하고, 동시에 이제 언리얼의 뒤에 배경이 있는 상황에서 이런 것들로 이제 최종 영상을 찍게 되는데, 그런 부분들에 있어서 사실은 이 메이커의 관점에서 확실히 더 이런 것들이 뭐 괴리감이 더 느껴지기도 하고 오히려 제가 더 인투이 돼서 이것들을 바라보기도 하는 것 같은데 사실 지금도 제가 저를 바라볼 수 없기 때문에 되게 재밌는 지점인 게 이제 실제 영상을 만들 때는 저는 굉장히 3인칭의 관점으로 이걸 바라보게 되는데 이게 제가 안에 들어와 있는 것 같은 느낌도 들기도 하면서 또 동시에 그거에 대한 괴리가 커지는 것 같기도 합니다.
As was mentioned by Joanne, as an artist myself, I am inside a platform, but I'm also using a PC. So maybe under this circumstance, there's not much difference that I could feel. But I think it's more from the perspective of a maker or creator than from the perspective of a viewer that you get to have more different experiences. As was mentioned before, I also use the Unreal Engine for the rendering. And what I do is to create characters using iCloud, and I also use a live link. And on the left-hand side, I create my animations, and in the Unreal Engine, with the background in place, I create my final videos. So it is from the perspective of a maker that I get to feel more of a gap between Metaverse and the real life. And I get to feel that I am more into this virtual environment. And even at this moment, I cannot see myself, but as I create the videos, because I take the perspective of a third person, it's different when I'm actually inside because I feel more of a gap between the virtual space and the real life.
Thank you, Jin-sung, thank you, Debbie, and thank you, Jo-ho. Well, I do have a next question then, if that's the case. I don't know Jin-sung personally, but I know Jo-ho and I know Debbie personally. And how does creating in the metaverse affects your own art practice IRL in real life, right? I mean, I've seen exhibitions, physical exhibitions from both of you. So maybe I would like to pose the question to Jo-ho, then Debbie, and then Jin-sung, right? How does it being creating in the metaverse affect or inform your art practice IRL? Jo.
So I recently did a physical project at Esplanade and the tunnel, and actually I used a lot of my like hangout sessions with Racing to like record them and then use them as like material for that exhibition. So I think like the content of just being in a metaverse, like the physical or like the just the aspect of hanging out in something that's virtual is really interesting to me. So I use that to then put into a multimedia installation, because then all of the glitches and all of the avatar bodies that we embody during our time in VRChat, we kind of like transform these glitches and they form kind of like a debris in the physical world. So like the remnants of the physical world are shown in the virtual, and then we took the remnants of that virtual glitches into the physical. So it's very much like a play between different worlds, and I've been trying to do that more with my other work as well, especially if it's physical.
That's good. I mean, as an artist, we all have a lot of digital remnants, times even physical or digital remnants, and what they call ephemeral things, right? However, I sometimes feel that as an artist, when we create, we also create a lot of digital maybe waste and physical waste, and how sometimes we also have to inform our practice to be straddling this kind of what do you call it, knowledge, this kind of knowledge that we can be I would say more recycling, upcycling in our works, but I see that in Debbie also, she has a lot of physical things. And how does it inform your practice in the metaverse? Don't worry, Jin Song, the question will come to you as well. So Debbie, yeah, you have a lot
Yeah.
of physical exhibitions that I've been to. So how does that inform your practice now that you're really going all out in the metaverse? As I know, spending a lot of money in getting equipment for the metaverse.
All equipment, yes. Like, yeah, I guess I also you could say I spent a lot of time also learning the software, learning 3D and game engine and developing. I guess what I think about more now building a lot of the metaverse things is that it's about the experience that I wanted to design. That there were so many ways to design that interactivity instead of what would be the most interesting experience you could have from art. Do you just want to see a thing, or do you want to would you like something else or weird to happen when you are there seeing it, or how could you interact with it in different ways? I think one big thing that I didn't really see maybe earlier on, but now I really like about VRChat is that it's social. Like, we can be here in the room, and I feel like you're there. You're just over there. You guys are here and all around here. And there's a lot. The way that we interact is also a lot different in the space when there's people in it. Whether you're on a packed train or you're in an empty train, a liminal train, or you're in a almost like commuting train situation. Yeah, for me also, I feel a lot of it bleeds into real life, because I guess I feel like I spend a lot of time speed running through either making stuff and recording speed runs of making stuff, or just trying to travel through VRChat and seeing a lot of amazing things. And some of that, you almost feel like part of the interface becomes part of what you are dreaming about at night as well. So it's kind of weird. Maybe I spent too long on VR already, but I was dreaming. I went to a world that I maybe ran for like 1 hour in VR, which was like it wasn't until I didn't even finish the world that I was in for like 1 hour running through it. And I realized that the next night I had a dream also about running through a space maybe for like the whole dream. I don't know why. So, a lot of it also bleeds into one's kind of reality or perception of life itself. So I guess it's for me, I guess the working in the metaverse is very fast to realize things. I maybe don't have the money to build a large scale installation every day. I'm very optimistic, you could say, about VR, and I know some people will be like, is it really still experience? But I think that there's still a lot of opportunity to do things that we don't know yet, that might emerge out of VR. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Debbie. It's really interesting, but to have that conversation continuing. But having said that, I would like to hear from Jin Song. What are your thoughts, and how does building cloud studio or in the metaverse influence your practice in real life?
실질적으로 이런 작업들을 해온 지 제가 한 1년 정도 된 것 같은데, 이런 상황에서의, 그러니까 제가 가장 집중하는 거는 이제 실제 공간에서 느낄 수 있는 예를 들면 뭐 갤러리 스페이스 같은 공간에서의 그런 화이트 노이즈와 뭐 이상할 정도의 약간 집중도나 약간 이상함에 이제 항상 몰입을 해서 그것들로부터 약간 실질적인 인터랙션의 작업도 해왔었는데, 그거와는 다르게 또 다른 일종의 챌린지들이 생기는 것들이 이 실제 메타버스 공간에서 뭐 저도 마찬가지고 이런 스크린 앞에서의 그런 뭐 일종의 몰입도, 그리고 그것들 일종의 그런 외부적 방해들을 손쉽게 이제 획득할 수도 있고, 또 동시에 되게 쉽게 그런 집중도가 흐트러지기도 하기 때문에, 사실 그것들의 이제 제 클라우드 스튜디오에 있는 영상 그 망상현실과도 같지만, 그 Diluted Reality라도 같지만, 결국은 그 결과적으로 현실과 가상의 공간이 흐트러뜨려지기 위한 어떤 일종의 이제 극강의 몰입도라고 할까요? 그런 것들이 어떻게 획득될 수 있을 것인가에 대한 이제 계속 고민이 되는 것 같습니다.
So I think I've been doing this type of work for about a year now, And in this environment, what I focus most myself is to try to create something that's pretty similar to the actual physical space, like gallery space, with all that white noise and the level of concentration or the immersion that you get to feel to the level that could feel rather strange. And that's the type of interactions that I want to, that I have been trying to create in the real life environment. But I think I face other types of challenges in the metaverse space because I myself am right in front of the screen, and there's this immersion that you get to have, but at the same time, there are so many external interferences that you get to acquire very easily, breaking your concentration level. So what I did in my cloud studio was to have this work entitled Diluted Reality, and I think it was an attempt to probably break the boundary between the real space and the virtual space. And what I try to figure out myself constantly is how to acquire the level of immersion that you have at the extreme level.
Thank you, thank you. That was a really thoughtful answer. But however, I still want to continue on this train. I know Jenny's has said that, I'll leave it the moderation, but I have a question for Jenny's Kim. Janice, you have curated both Jin Song's physical and now Metaverse studio, the world that he has in Pluritopia, and you are the one who informed us that there is similarities and differences. But what is it like curating for these kind of artists that have both an exhibition and purely exist on the digital realm? Thank you.
피지컬 전시하고 그다음에 메타버스 전시에서 사실 장진순 작가의 같은 경우는 같은 작품을 전시를 했었는데 이제 그 가장 큰 차이는 그러니까 작품에서 오는 느낌이나 작품의 해석이 달라지지는 않지만 환경이 바뀜으로 인해서 그러니까 환경이 바뀜으로 인해서 큐레이터의 컨트롤을 할 수 있는 부분이 많이 바뀐다는 거를 제가 느꼈어요. 그래서 그러니까 가령 피지컬 공간 안에서 전시를 할 때는 큐레이터가 어느 공간에 어떤 작품을 놓고 그 다음에 관람객들의 동선을 만들고 어떻게 이 작품을 보고 감상할 수 있는지를 기획하는데 이 메타버스 공간에서 큐레이터가 할 수 있는 그 컨트롤의 한계는 매우 제한적이고 오히려 작가가 자신의 작품을 위한 환경을 만드는 데 있어서 자율성이 무한대로 커지기 때문에 메타버스 상에서야말로 작가가 자신의 작품이 가야 되는 가장 정확한 공간, 그다음에 적당한 공간을 파악하는 데 좋은 환경이었다고 생각을 합니다.
So, both for the physical exhibition and metaverse exhibition, in the case of the artist Chang Jin-seung, he basically showed the same artworks. I don't believe that there was that much of a difference in terms of how you felt viewing the works or the interpretation of the artworks by this artist. But the biggest change probably was because of the change in the environment of placing these artworks. As a curator myself, I felt that there was much less room for me to control the exhibition when it took place in the metaverse, the virtual space. If it were the physical space, normally what I do as a curator is to decide where to locate the artworks within the given physical space, and I create a natural flow of the audience as they get to enjoy different works. So I have much more control. But when it comes to Metaverse, as a curator, I felt much more limitations in the type of control that I get to have in creating the exhibition. Rather, for the artist himself or herself, I felt that there was not much limitation in terms of the environment that he or she wanted to create for placing or locating his artworks and creating the environment for the viewers to enjoy. So maybe Metaverse is a much more advantageous environment for artists to create the most optimal environment for displaying or presenting his or her works.
Thank you, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for your responses.
Thank you, Janice.
And thank you, Janice. Now we would like to open the floor for Q&A. So if anyone has any questions for the artists, or even among the artists with us on stage here, if you have questions for one another, please go ahead and ask it away.
Yeah, if Debbie or Joe have any questions, you know, Jin-san has any questions for fellow artists, just go for it.
Maybe
Okay,
I
I'm
can
go-
ask Debbie a question. I'm
Go
really
ahead, go
curious.
away.
I'm really curious. How did you, Debbie, start to explore building in 3D?
Thank you, Joe, for the question. It's interesting because I think some years ago I was doing my master's, you know, I think I felt a bit like an imposter in the design school actually, and I was still making a lot of objects, a lot of installations that were physical, and I think around then I realized that I didn't really have any grasp on how to do 3D or 3D modeling in any controlled sense of it. I used scripts to produce 3D objects. I could understand how to do 3D fabrication and things like that, but I did not know how to do 3D modeling. So when it came to trying to maybe go further or make something speculative, you know, make something further out there, of course, reality is one of the scales of it. You know, you can make something real, but that real part, how real it is, can also fall into the uncanny. Also sometimes you want to make something that's in the future or in the past, and I couldn't really make that, and that's what kind of really made me want to learn 3D modeling. And then I spend the time to make this kind of interactive stuff, since it seemed that that's what I know. So I guess it wasn't as hard as I thought. I think it's really amazing to see all the worlds made by everybody, all the different artists, because I know a lot of people were also introduced to it for the first time, having to come to grips with that, and that's awesome, because I think there's a lot of opportunity to realize an idea, or maybe even a concept, or just a thing that we couldn't do in real life. Like what I really like about the respawning thing that you were doing, Joe. You know, that's also thinking about you know, life and death in the VR. That those are the things that we can, you know, that can be explored through action, you know, because it's you are, everybody's here in the space walking through it and living through the action of it. Yeah.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you for the response to that, and thank you, Joe, for the questions. If anyone has any other questions that you would like to ask any of the artists here?
Oh.
Or Janice? Oh, yeah, Debbie, you have a question.
Oh, I have a question for Janice, and also you know, Serena and Lei also. I'm curious, because how did you, just now, Janice, you were mentioning that that as a curator, maybe you know, in a real life exhibition, you also maybe could kind of determine or influence the position of objects, or how their placement and how people will encounter them. But in VR, it's like the artist has run off with it, you know, with the keys to the palace, and is now going to place it, boom, here, and you almost have no, but you know, yeah. So I wondered about that, for how you also feel is how different it is, you know, curating the virtual, or what do you get? What new things could you do also as curators in this kind of metaverse?
Hi, Jenny.
No.
Oh,
이게 작품만 보는 게 아니라 작품이 들어있는 환경 전체 모두가 다 예술 작품의 일부로 느껴지기 때문에, 그런 면에서 예상했던 거랑은 굉장히 다른 결과물이 나와서 많이 놀랐어요.
this is what I felt. Not necessarily just the artworks themselves, but the entire environment that contains the artworks of an artist felt like an art piece in and of itself. And the outcome of the whole environment that contains those artworks came out to be rather quite different than my original expectations, which was quite surprising to me.
That's interesting. Maybe also, I also think a lot about this idea that maybe to respond to Janice, so thinking about what can go in an exhibition. Like, I think also it's funny because to some extent, I know that when you build in VRChat, a lot of people also use assets to that might be like these things that space objects that might be common amongst us, because they appear as very generic objects in asset stores and things like that. So some of these structures are also predetermined. So I guess then the challenge is how to break out of that. Yeah, or whether or not as a curator, so you might also feel that you want to control the environment more. And maybe also to I wonder if that's something also you guys have been thinking about.
For us, I think it's not that easy to curate something in a metaverse because, as Janice has said before, if you curate something in physical terms, the reification in and of itself, the space, you can still control it. If you want to use the word control, you can still shape it right till maybe a month or but in the metaverse, sometimes, although you say it's a blank space, it is, but you're already building it from way before. And sometimes, because it's the first time me and Lei are doing curating in the metaverse, we get very precious about the landscapes that have been curated. So if everyone can look towards your this side, the keyboards.
There?
Artist world, right? The artist world. You can see there's this portal that leads to Pluritopian space, and that was a world that we created that somehow didn't fit in initially, and then we refused to let go. And I don't know why we just kept it there as a remnant. So maybe Lei can answer why we didn't. We took a while to let go of that.
Okay, so if you look at the space we are currently situated, this is what we call the Pluritopia main stage. And if cameraman can sort of turn to his right, you will see the creator space. The other space that we first envisioned when building Pluritopia is to have that creator space where artists can hang and chill and chit-chat with one another. You do see the artist profiles and their bio and their virtual cocktails inside. It's kind of like a manifestation or an extension of what you would really do in the gallery space where, in the launch party, you have your drinks and such. But having said that, one of the I would say it's very fun to curate and produce in the metaverse because you have all the free reign in terms of how you envision the environment. So initially, as a first prototype, what we did with Duke Studios is to build like a space moon crater as the main Pluritopia world. But further to that, then we realized it might be too symbolic or too representational in terms of giving it kind of like a clean state before the audiences or the people who come in enter the different artist portal, which is why when you were to look at the new artist portal world, if cameraman can help point back to the artist portal side, you do see that it's actually much more cleaner. We sort of removed the certain elements. There's still remnants of the moon crater, definitely showcasing all the different 20 artist portals and 3 collaborative artwork. Those are things that we want to re-emphasize. It was given kind of like even when we were talking about it, Shao, who is the Unity developer behind this, we had this vision. I think he had this vision, or maybe coincidentally, it's like a Stonehenge in the metaverse where you gather around a space and you walk into these different stones, and then it becomes like a little Teleportation. What I love about building in the metaverse is teleportation part. Curating it was fun because we often think about moving or navigating into spaces, but the teleportation really sort of change your mentality in terms of how you navigate a space. You are actually literally, for example, if I'm standing here in this particular space, but if I were to jump into Joanne's world, I may be falling through the space, or Ryan's world, I may be falling through into his blanket. So that sense of embodiment is actually very strong when curating in the metaverse. Yeah.
Yeah. So also in the physical space, we can kind of control our environment more. And right now, everybody, please turn and look at the policeman who is walking around. There's a policeman. Yes, he's one of the artists that has been doing interventions, destructive interventions, and I can't control this person like that in the metaverse. Only in real life, right? I can get the security to throw any destructive elements out, but these artists, I cannot get anyone to control him, and that is the pro and con of creating in the metaverse. Yeah, so that is one of the control that you say that we don't have as well in the metaverse. Not only just fit spaces, but embodiments. Yeah.
And if you want to check out Sung Sook's world, he has his world, Sung Sook's world, in the Cloud Studio as well. You can check out his world. You can find that same policeman in this world as well. Okay, Janice, any thoughts or anything you would like to add on to what we just shared about creating in the metaverse?
Yeah, I was going to say about that policeman guarding the space. Because that's the part that we don't have the control over, right?
Yes, he's my cameraman is always very upset with the policeman. He's always destroying and photo bombing the shot. But that's part of a creation in the metaverse. Okay, then we have time for the last. Please go ahead. Tell us.
I asked him to come, to guard the situation because, we had to do our job done well today.
Thank you, Janice, for offering such a wonderful security service. I understand Pluritopia have their exclusive security service. Thank you for your service, policeman. Is that a real a uniform that Korean policemen wear?
Yes.
Janice, is it
real? Yeah, he looks really real.
He looks really real. Hi, thank you so much. Lei has a last question for everyone on stage. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask Joe first, Joanne first. So how does the metaverse become part of one's practice or studio if the artist is not physically part of it or inside this virtual environment?
So are you asking specifically about the videos that I put in my studio?
Yeah. In particular to your world, it's the videos. You're not physically inside. Most of the time you are either building in 3D or you have other physical exhibitions to attend to. So how does this metaverse become or be entwined or intertwined with your current practice in real life?
So in my real life, I'm also trying to be more digitally present. So that means streaming as well. And those videos that are in my studio, they take a very casual streaming approach. So that's how I recorded it with that in mind. It's also very much in line with how I would act or behave in VRChat as I'm just hanging out, talking to other people, but instead of other people, it's talking to myself in a mirror, which is how I feel most of the time when I'm streaming. So in terms of that, I'm trying to incorporate more of that in my own work as well, streaming or performances on Twitch, stuff like that.
I see. Okay, I have a question for Jin Song. I'm going to curveball the whole thing. Jin Song, 3 words for you, and please have a comment. Embodiment, presence, liveness. I ask you this because you have a lot of avatars in your world as well. Comment, please.
가상 공간에 존재한다는 것과 뭐 일종의 이제 휴머노이드나 AI 휴머노이드 그런 로봇들의 바디, 그러니까 몸들이 가상 공간에 존재한다는 것과 실제 공간에 존재한다는 건 어떻게 보면은 저한테는 또 되게 비슷한 느낌이기도 한 것 같아요. 왜냐면은 뭐 이미 우리가 디스플레이나 이런 가상 환경 공간, 뭐 아니면은 뭐 특히 인스타그램도 마찬가지고 이게 2D냐 3D냐의 문제지 사실 우리가 이것들에 익숙해진 지 되게 오래됐기 때문에 사실 가끔은 그런 것들이 약간 일종의 헷갈리는 그런 상황이 오기도 하고 그것들의 경계들은 확실히 불분명해졌다고 말할 수 있을 것 같습니다.
So when it comes to the concept of presence in virtual space, as you said, I get to use humanoids or AI humanoids, and the presence of that body in the virtual space to me feels quite similar to its presence in the real life space or real life environment. Because I think we've already grown quite familiar to this virtual environment, whether it's a 2D or 3D environment, through something like Instagram. We've already grown quite familiar with this environment, and the boundaries between those different spaces are sometimes confusing, and they've become quite unclear.
Thank you so much, Jinson, for your answers and responses. I'm going to ask Debbie the last question before we wrap up today's Fireside Chat. Okay, I'm going to talk about attachment. I do see that you actually spend quite a fair bit of time in VR. You actually dedicate your lunch hour to clock time on VRChat so that we can get it up to a user rank in order to publish a wall. Okay. And which world? I mean, can you address a little bit more about this sense of attachment to the metaverse?
I guess yes. I was since family and other commitments require that if I want to play a game, even I have to make a schedule or time for it because it's nighttime. I put my daughter to bed, but a lot of it is also seeing what's out there and attachment to. I guess I feel like I've always loved playing these sort of games like Second Life. I never really made it explicitly part of my art. But I've always played Second Life for like almost, I don't know how many years, 15. I think I got an email recently and it said, "Congratulations, you are 18 years old." Oh no! In Second Life. I don't know how, that's ridiculous already. But I always like this idea of this game, and I think what I like so much about it is the feeling of getting lost, that and the fact that this game doesn't really have a point. We're all standing here in the room. This is the game. There's no like we have to become good at throwing stuff or jumping on stuff. We just are here, and we're just talking or seeing or interacting with the world and exploring it. And I guess that is the experience that I enjoy. And for me, I kind of relate it back to my interest in making works about space in the past. Thinking about geographies and everything, and these things that I'm interested in of real spaces. I'm also interested in the virtual space. Thinking about placemaking in VR. Yeah. So it's all connected still. Even the camera work. Like now we have a Mr. Cameraman over here. I said cameraman because it's a man, but I don't know if you're a man or girl. But anyway, the camera, the virtual camera, and you can think of it as a kind of photography, or you can also relate it back to other mediums like cinema, and how we think of the cinematic effect that we want to get, having your fog over here, having a bloom effect in some of the worlds, kind of filmic looks. So a lot of it transfers over from other fields, of practices, into VR. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Debbie. And with this last question, we will end our first fireside chat for our symposium day 2. Thank you so much once again, all the artists who joined us today, Joanne Ho, Jin Song, and Debbie Ding. And well, thank you so much for being here with us and your responses and your sort of feedback regarding or your thoughts regarding practicing in the metaverse, the thoughts about embodiment, remnants, attachment. Those are conversations we would like to continue today, later in the Fireside Chat 1. And also thank you to Janice, who supported us in terms of the security of Pluritopia with so as the policeman. Thank you once again for joining us in this session. And now we will switch over. We will take a little short switch over, 30-second switch over, since this is in virtual world. Our cameraman will do a switch to the Fireside Chat 1. Once again for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dee.
We are right back right now. So if we can have Hello everyone. Welcome back to our YouTube live stream and live from VRChat. We are at the Symposium Day 2, Fireside Chat 2, where we have digital reimagination, place delusion in the metaverse. With us on the panel are...
Thank you. We have Brian Liao from Singapore, Chung Ai Go from Singapore, and Jung Ho Park from Korea. As always, a special thanks to Janice Kim from Korea and our interpreter, Ki Hyung. And we want to thank everybody who's here. Thank you, artists who are here. Thank you, public who are here. Thank you, police people who are here. This is a good time to talk about the first Fireside Chat. We were talking about embodied presence. And however, the second Fireside Chat, something different. So we jump from bodies to places. And I think that would be a good place to start. Okay, Lei, what have you for us?
Okay, so the premise of this fireside chat is there's this one particular interview from Jonathan Click. He's the former SVP of Product and Technology at the New York Times. He considers the metaverse as a long-term human exploration to amalgamate fact and fiction. And he also acknowledges that escaping from reality is an ancient desire. So in this fireside chat, I would like to ask artists the first question. Maybe I'll address the first question to okay, sure. So maybe we have the interpreter give us a little summary of what I just shared.
네, 이제 저희가 첫 번째 채팅에서는 body, 이제 몸과 체화에 대해서 얘기를 했는데 이제 공간과 장소로 초점을 옮겨서 말씀을 나눠보도록 하겠습니다. 뉴욕타임스에서 상품과 기술 담당을 했었던 그 부사장 해클이 예전에 이런 얘기를 한 적이 있습니다. 메타버스에 대해서 사실과 허구를 합치려는 오래된 인간의 염원이다 라고 말을 하면서 현실로부터의 탈피는 아주 고대로부터 내려온 오래된 희망이다라고 말을 한 바가 있는데요. 이 부분과 관련해서 이제 첫 번째 질문을 드리고자 합니다.
Thank you, interpreter. So I'm going to address the first question to Chung Ai. To what extent is the truthfulness, in this case likeness to real life, important in the conceptualization of your cloud studio?
Interpreter.
네, 첫 번째 질문은 충악에게 드리도록 하겠습니다. 본인의 가상 스튜디오를 개념화하는 데 있어서 현실 세계와 비슷한 정도, 즉 그 사실성과 진실성은 어느 정도까지 중요했는지 궁금합니다.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, actually, in fact, this is a question that I have been thinking about since the start of working on this project as well. Because as you know, my studio is very specific to the project I'm working on, so it's based on like the imagery of gardens in Singapore, right? It's like personal garden in HDB and also community garden. Because it's centered around the code, let us cultivate our garden. But at the same time, because what I'm trying to really explore is not garden itself actually. It's about the tensions between the individual and the collective, and gardens is really just a borrowed imagery to discuss this whole notion. So I've also been thinking about is it really important, or how important is it for the HDB to look like HDB we're used to, for the gardens to look like gardens that we know, and for community garden to really look like something that we can see outside. So it's something I've been thinking about, and I feel that there is definitely still certain importance, because if I want to talk about this and I want to kind of base it on surrounding that are used to, I think there must be elements familiar to us, so that because for all of us here, maybe we are, after 1 year, we are a bit more used to talking to each other, looking at our avatars in this metaverse, in this virtual world. But I think for a lot of people, maybe it's still something that's very fresh, very new, and if I just come up with something that's totally out of the world, I think it's going to be very hard for people to kind of accept or even process what's going on. So definitely there has to be a certain element. So you can see that in my studio, there's floors, there's staircases. I can very easily just put like portals, then people can teleport and get plant and teleport back down. But I feel that there must still be certain elements, like to give some idea of physical work of bring the garden or bring the plants together to build a garden. So to me it's about finding this balance, the sweet spot between having people being familiar with what's going on, having people to experience the virtual world in certain ways that are similar to our reality, but at the same time to explore what is possible in this virtual reality that that we otherwise would be impossible or very, very, very hard to do in the real world. Yeah. So to me, it's really about I'm still trying to balance, find this balance now. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Chungai. Maybe we can have the interpreter interpret what he just said. Thank you, interpreter.
예, 사실 지금 하신 질문 얼마만큼의 이제 현실성을 반영을 할 것인가라는 것은 제가 작업을 처음 시작을 했을 때부터 항상 고민을 해왔던 그런 부분입니다. 그러니까 저의 스튜디오 같은 경우에는 싱가포르의 정원의 이미지를 활용을 하고 있습니다. 그것이 개인 정원이건 어떤 이제 동네의 커뮤니티 정원이건 이런 이미지를 활용을 하고 있는데, 저희가 탐색을 하고자 하는 것은 그 가든, 즉 정원 자체는 아니고 실제로는 어떤 개별적인 것과 집단적인 것 사이의 긴장 관계를 모색을 하고자 저희가 정원이라는 이미지를 차용을 해서 활용을 했었던 것입니다. 작업에 있어서요. 그렇기 때문에 현실과 얼마만큼 비슷한가라는 것을 생각을 했을 때에는 사실은 이제 저희 동네 정원이라든지 이런 거는 저희가 밖에서 실제로 돌아다니면서 볼 수 있는 것이기 때문에 어느 정도는 유사하게 하는 것이 저는 중요하다고 생각을 했습니다. 저희가 익숙해진 환경이고 익숙해져 왔던 그런 요소들이 분명히 있기 때문에 저희 모두가 지금부터 한 1년 후에는 메타버스라는 공간에서 아바타라는 모습으로 서로 대화를 나누는데 훨씬 더 익숙해져 있을지 모르겠지만 지금 현재 이 순간의 경우는 굉장히 새롭고 신선한 어떤 이런 것이기 때문에 완전히 현실과 다르다 라고 한다면 사람들에게 있어서 그 주어진 작품을 이해하는 데 있어서 조금 많이 어렵지 않을까라는 생각이 들었기 때문에 이 truthfulness, 그 진실성의 요소를 어느 정도 들어오는 것이 더 낫다고 생각을 했고요. 그것이 어떤 포털의 모습이건 텔리포팅이건 이런 새로운 요소가 있다고 하더라도 특정 요소는 분명히 저희가 물리적인 어떤 정원이라든지 식물이라든지 이런 것과 비슷한 부분이 반영이 돼야 된다고 생각을 했고, 그 균형점의 스윗 스팟, 그러니까 가장 적절한 균형점을 찾는 것이 중요해진다고 저는 생각을 합니다. 그래서 여전히 저희는 이런 가상 공간에서 이러한 최적의 균형점을 찾기 위해서 노력을 하고 있는 과정에 있고, 이게 가상 공간이기 때문에 현실에서는 불가능했던 것이 가능해지는 부분도 있는데, 그럼 과연 그것이 무엇이냐라는 것도 모색을 하는 것이 중요하다고 생각을 합니다. 그래서 이 균형점을 찾는 과정이 저에게 있어서 되게 중요합니다.
Thank you, interpreter. That was a really good interpretation. I want to tell everyone also who's not familiar. HDB, it means public housing for Singaporeans. It is high rise, it is slightly dense, and most of Singaporeans stay in these HDBs where Chungai has situated his metaverse in the space and all these conceptualizations. It means Housing Development Board. Interpreter, please. Thank you.
네, 이제 혹시 이제 모르시는 분들을 위해서 HDB에 대해서 말씀을 드리고 싶은데요. 이게 주택개발위원회에서 지은 공공주택입니다. 그래서 고층이고 상당히 밀집도가 높은 그러한 주택의 형태라고 생각을 하시면 되겠고, 싱가포르 대부분이 이런 공공 이제 아파트 같은 데서 살고 있고, 지금 말씀하셨던 작가 같은 경우에 메타버스를 그러한 환경에다가 두고 만들었습니다.
Thank you, interpreter. Okay, I have a next question for Brian Liao, which is, how is your Pluritopia Artist Studio an externalization of your real life studio? I mean, I've seen Brian is also doing situating his works in HDB, in HDB hawker center, food center, and all that. Brian, thank you. Sorry, interpreter first. Thank you.
다음 질문은 브라이언에게 드리도록 하겠습니다. 지금 이 본인의 플루리토피아 아티스트 스튜디오를 만드는 데 있어서 어느 정도 현실 세계와의 그 외재화가 이루어졌는지가 궁금합니다. 마찬가지로 호커센터 같은 이제 HDB 환경을 활용을 하고 계신데 이 부분에 대한 답 부탁드립니다.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I want to sort of create a dreamscape in my world. So actually, like how it looks like this HDB or this very Singaporean kind of aspect to the world is kind of like a side effect of like what I'm trying to create. Cause like I'm trying to create a dreamscape that is close to how I see it in my own dreams, but then because like when we dream we only have, we take experiences from our daily lives, and like it kind of like create this narrative. So the only kind of like experiences I have is this physical world. So like there's a lot of like, I guess, elements that my dreams kind of take from the physical world, and then I'm just like kind of recreating it. And like also the tool that I'm using, which is photogrammetry, it also create this kind of like lifelike quality to like all the elements in my world. So I think all these things combined together gives this feeling of like that we are actually in like Singapore, but it's just a bit more dreamlike or like scuffed in some ways that is interesting. But ultimately I do it like that because I want to create, I don't want to think of it as like I want to create sorry, what I mean is I don't want to create a generic dreamscape that is like typically like you kind of imagine what dreams really look like that is depicted online or whatever. But like, I want to create something that's very personal to me. Like this dreamscape is personal to me. So so I guess like all these elements kind of add up together to form that. Yeah.
Thank you, Miss Interpreter.
지금 네, HDB라고 하는 거는 이제 굉장히 싱가포르적인 요소라고 생각을 하는데요. 제가 만들고자 했었던 건 이제 제 꿈의 모습을 그리고자 했었던 것입니다. 드림스케이프라는 것을 만들고 싶었던 것인데, 기존에 일단 제가 경험을 가지고 있는 것은 물리적인 세상에서 가진 경험밖에 없기 때문에 그 물리적인 경험의 요소들을 반영을 했고요. 제가 창작하고자 하는 그런 꿈의 모습에 있어서 그리고 동시에 굉장히 현실성과 가까운 그러한 그 품질을 낼 수 있는 포토메트릭 기술을 활용을 해서 제가 작업을 했습니다. 그렇게 해서 굉장히 싱가포르적인 느낌이 나면서도 꿈과 같은 그러한 느낌이 나는 요소가 결합되도록 한 것이 이제 저의 작품의 핵심이 되는 것이고, 제가 가장 이상적으로 추구했던 것은 이제 그 누구나 뭐 온라인으로 검색을 하면 나오는 그런 꿈의 모습이 아니라, 그런 일반적인 것이 아니라 제 개인적으로 저희 개성이 있는 그러한 꿈의 모습 드림스케이프를 만들고자 했습니다.
Thank you for that. Okay, I want to ask the question next to Jung-Ho Park. I want to say, everybody, thank you very much for the answers, but Mr. Jung-Ho Park's studio is the most tiring. I would use the word, it's a joke. It was very big and I had to run very, very long. So Lei has a specific question to that very specific question, but I'll let the interpreter answer first. Translate first.
예, 감사드리고요. 다음 질문은 박종호 작가님께 드리도록 하겠습니다. 박종호 작가님 스튜디오가 물론 농담이긴 합니다만은 저에게 있어서는 정말로 가장 피곤한 곳이었는데요. 왜냐면 굉장히 컸고 오랫동안 달려야 했습니다. 그래서 그 작품과 관련을 해서 레이 선생님이 구체적인 질문 드리겠습니다.
Go ahead, Lei.
Okay, so Jung-Ho, my question is, to what extent is the truthfulness, likeness, or in this case, in real life, important to the conceptualization of your virtual studio? Because what we will share, what Janice and Suma shared with us, your space is at least 1 kilometer long. So we ran 1 kilometer in the Metaverse. So maybe you can share a little bit more about that. Interpreter?
네, 제가 드리고 싶은 질문은 이제 선생님이 가상 스튜디오를 개념화하는 데 있어서 진실성, 사실성, 그 truthfulness는 이제 현실 세계와 어느 정도 비슷한가인데 그거가 어느 정도까지 중요하냐라는 것이 질문이고요. 이 질문을 드리는 것은 이제 실제로 스튜디오에 가봤을 때 한 1km 정도는 저희가 메타버스 상에서 달려야 했었거든요. 따라서 이 부분에 대해서 조금 구체적으로 답을 부탁드립니다.
예. 1km 사실은 한 100km 혹은 1000km 정도를 크게 만들고 싶었는데요. 왜냐하면 저에게 있어서 이런 실제라는 것은 제 스튜디오에서는 별로 중요하다고 생각하지 않았습니다. 그러니까 일종의 가능성에 대한 것을 표현하고 싶었어요. 그러니까 즉 좀 목적 지향적인 스튜디오를 만들고 싶었습니다.
Actually, you're saying that it was 1 kilometer, but as a matter of fact, what I wanted to create was something that was much bigger, probably spanning 100 or even 1,000 kilometers. Because when it comes to my studio, I don't feel that truthfulness is all that important. I wanted to express what is possible, the possibilities, and I wanted my studio to be oriented towards our goal or destination.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, Joe.
그래서 이 추상적인 이 추상적인 공간에서 그 물체들이 보여지는, 그냥 물체도 크기가 지금 굉장히 큰데 그것이 어느 정도 큰 것들을 구현 가능한가에 대한 가능성이었고, 그래서 저에게는 중요한 것은 그런 것을 바라보는 관찰자 혹은 그것을 바라보게 되는 경험하는 사람들의 직관적인 감각이 더 중요하다고 생각해서 그러한 실제적인 것에 대한 것은 중요하다고 생각하지 않았습니다. 네. 그리고 1km 달리기 해서 죄송합니다.
So because of what I've just said, in this abstract space, the objects themselves were quite large. I wanted to create very large objects because what I tried to do was to experiment with the possibility of expressing such large objects in this space. How big can you go with these objects in this virtual space was something that I wanted to do. So that from the perspective of observers or viewers or people who experience those objects, they could have these intuitive feelings as they do so. That was something that I thought was important, and that was the reason that I didn't think truthfulness was all that important. And my apologies for making you run 1 kilometer.
No, it's okay. It was just we were discussing with all the artists because we were running and we were unsure how long it was going to run. But yeah, it was fun, you know. I even though I wasn't using my VR headset, I was running with my keyboard, but I felt tired literally. Yeah, maybe interpreter can interpret this part.
네, 괜찮습니다. 그냥 저희가 이제 뛰어가면서 이게 도대체 언제까지 뛰어야 되는지 잘 모르는 상태로 뛰고 있었기 때문에, 네, 그리고 제가 VR 헤드셋을 쓰고 키보드를 이용해서 뛰고 있었기 때문에 좀 피곤했다는 얘기지 괜찮습니다.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to ask the next question, and going back to Chungai, how does your virtual studio enact the illusion of a place or even offer an escape from reality? Chungai, please.
다음 질문을
wait, before you start.
네,
Interpreter, please. Sorry.
예, 정학에게 드리도록 하겠는데요. 지금 가상 스튜디오 안에서 이 공간에 대한 환상을 어떻게 만들어서 현실로부터의 탈피를 실현을 하는지에 대한 질문입니다.
Yeah. So how does it enact the illusion of place or offer a escape? So as I mentioned, I try to still borrow some elements from reality that we're familiar with, and for that, for example, like when making my like HDB looking building, I make it like a high-rise apartment. I use like the brick color, which is not what every HDB is painted with, but something that it immediately gives you the feeling of this, like it's a building, it's an apartment, it's a residential area. And of course there's also the larger world, the larger surrounding, which I use an add-on in Blender to extract the geospatial data of Google Maps to really create that sense of it's actually in my estate it's in Tampines. So just to give an idea of like more sense of familiarity, that we are surrounded with these dense buildings. It's a residential area. Of course, I didn't color that to kind of still differentiate it, to not disorientate people too much, because I think although I want to give that illusion of place, familiarity for people to kind of have an idea of, oh yeah, this is kind of based on the neighborhood. I feel to make it too realistic also, it might disorientate people, and I guess that in a way offer an escape from reality, in the sense that it feels familiar, but it feels strange because all the surrounding buildings are white except for the main one that we are supposed to kind of interact with, and in that sense also the absence of signages, the absence of crowds of shops or certain other things that are in reality. So yeah, I think that's kind of how I try to have this it looks like something we're familiar with. It's an illusion that we are still, it's still based on something we are close to, that we see every day, but at the same time it's a bit different, be in terms of the visual, be in terms of what is present or what we can do, even like interacting with certain things like like roads, traffic lights and things like that. I put in what I feel might be relevant or useful. Yeah, so I think that's how I kind of approach this whole thing.
Okay, so if interpreter can summarize this for us.
예, 이제
Thank you.
공간에 대한 환상을 통해서 현실의 탈피를 하는 시도에 대해서 질문을 해주셨는데요. 저는 그럼에도 불구하고 여전히 현실에서 저희가 익숙한 그런 요소를 사용을 하고자 했습니다. 그랬기 때문에 그 HDB, 그 공공주택의 모습을 차용을 했던 것이고요. 그리고 뭐 벽돌색 색깔을 사용을 하고 이게 좀 높은 건물이 들어오고 주거지의 모습을 이제 표현을 했었던 것이고요. 그렇지만 동시에 제가 또한 구글맵에 이런 지리공간학적인 그런 데이터라든지 이런 것도 넣고 벽도 크게 만들고 해서 저희가 주거지에 이런 밀집된 건물이라는 익숙해진 광경을 일단은 표현을 했습니다. 그렇지만 동시에 제가 공간에 대한 이제 환상감을 만들고자 하기도 했는데요. 동네 이런 익숙한 것들을 차용하기는 했었습니다만은 여전히 현실과는 조금 다른 부분들은 분명히 있었습니다. 예를 들어서 건물 주변 건물들이 뭐 흰색이라든지 간판이 없다라든지 가게도 없고 사람들도 없고 하는 이런 분명히 현실과 다른 그런 요소들이 있었거든요. 그렇기 때문에 이것을 통해서 어떤 일루전을 만들려고 했었던 것이고 여전히 그럼에도 불구하고 우리가 일상에서 봤던 그런 광경에 기반을 해서 진행을 했지만 동시에 뭔가는 좀 다르지 않는가라는 느낌을 줌으로써 이런 현실로부터의 도피를 시도를 했습니다.
Thank you, interpreter. So I'm going to address another question, but this time to Brian. Brian, what are the idealized elements in your virtual studio? Maybe interpreter can mention the question first.
다음 질문은 브라이언에게 드리도록 하겠습니다. 그러니까 브라이언 작가님의 그 가상 스튜디오에 있어서 아이디얼화된 요소, 즉 이상화된 요소는 무엇이었습니까?
So over to you,
I got a
Brian.
question. I got a question back to you, sorry, but I hear what you mean by idealized, cause like there's different kind of ways to think of idealization of the kind of space, right? Interpreter.
네,
Thank you.
그 이상화된 요소라는 게 무슨 뜻인지 조금 더 구체적으로 말씀해 주시면 좋을 것 같습니다. 서로 다양한 이상화의 방식을 얘기하는 것인지 조금 더 구체적으로 질문 주십시오.
So idealized could be in the line of an escape from reality. That's one approach to look at that. Interpreter.
네, 이상화됐다라고 하는 것은 현실로부터의 탈피라는 차원에서 생각하셔도 좋을 것 같습니다.
Idealized can also be in the form of things you imagine that would be more like a perfect utopian vision of your world. Interpreter?
네, 아니면은 이 이상화됐다라는 것은 이제 상상을 동원을 해서 완벽한 유토피아의 세계의 형태로도 볼 수가 있겠습니다.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
So like I said, the world I built is based around my dream. So I guess like the idealized part of it is like trying to make so-called the dream come true, right? Like make the experience of being in my dream become a sort of like a reality, like in a way that it doesn't just exist in my head, but also like other people can kind of feel or experience it as well. So I think it's in like incorporating like all these I guess different features of like the dream. For example, like there's one part of my dream where it's like there's this highway that is like across this scenic view. Like you can look at the horizon and there's like this whole landscape of like factories and like so like I built that in the world, and it's like just trying to recreate that kind of experience of like awe by just looking at like that scenery. And another example is also like how I created this button that is like sort of hidden in, but it isn't like very obviously out there. So it's like a kind of hidden feature where you can, when you explore and discover the world, you can like find all these things and like sort of just play. Yeah.
Okay, maybe we have the interpreter interpret this part first before you continue.
Sorry.
그러니까 저의 스튜디오는 이제 꿈에 기반을 해서 만들었는데 이 이상화되었다라는 것은 어떻게 보면 이제 꿈의 실현이라는 측면에서도 볼 수 있을 것 같습니다. 이제 꿈의 경험이지만 이것을 어떻게 보면 현실과 같이 만드는 것인데요. 꿈에서만 존재하는 것이 아니라 이제 다른 타인들도 그것을 같이 느끼고 경험한다라는 차원에서 이상화가 이루어졌다라고도 볼 수가 있겠습니다. 그래서 제가 가지고 있는 꿈의 여러 가지 다양한 특징들을 반영을 하고자 했고, 예를 들어서 뭐 고속도로 상에서 광경을 보는데 지평선이 보이고 하는 이런 것들을 제가 월에다가 넣으려고 했고, 그 광경을 재창조하기 위해서 노력을 했었던 것이고, 또 숨겨진 여러 가지 다양한 피처들을 통해서 그것을 발견해 나가면서 느낄 수 있는 것들도 재현을 하고자 했습니다.
I guess I can continue. I mean, like, just to finish up the last point on the button thing. So, like, it's actually just like a sort of a dark mode version. Like, you press the button, you just turn my world into like a dark mode version. I mean, it's just like a change of the skybox and like change of that local environment, like in only that one area. So, in my dreams, it's actually not so. It's not so, there isn't such a big effect, but like being able to like recreate the experience and think about how other people will experience it, how they can feel like the world is changing. I think that is also like an aspect to like sort of idealizing this space, right? Like thinking about how people can experience my world. Yeah.
Interpreter, please.
그래서 사실은 뭐 버튼을 하나 눌러가지고서는 하늘이 바뀐다라든지 어떤 환경성의 특정 부분이 바뀐다라든지 이런 부분도 있었고, 그렇지만 그럼에도 불구하고 저 꿈 전반에 대한 영향은 크지 않았다라고 생각을 하고, 경험을 제가 재창조하기 위해서 노력을 했었던 것이고, 공간에 대한 그런 이상화된 부분을 사람들이 제 공간의 꿈을 경험을 하면서 느낄 수 있도록 시도를 한 것입니다.
Thank you, interpreter. So I'm going to ask the questions, the same question to Jong-ho also. What are the idealized elements in your cloud studio? Idealized here meaning an escape from reality. Also idealized meaning utopian vision of your cloud studio. Interpreter, please.
네, 동일한 질문을 박정원 선생님께도 드리도록 하겠습니다. 다시 말해서 본인의 가상 스튜디오에 있어서 아이디얼라이즈드 된 요소, 이상화된 요소는 무엇인지를 여쭙는 것인데, 이상화됐다라고 하는 것은 현실 탈피적인 요소이거나 아니면은 본인의 스튜디오에 대한 어떤 유토피아 차원의 비전을 얘기하는 것입니다.
네, 저도 그 질문이 가장 어려웠는데, 이디얼라이즈된 엘리멘트가 어떤 거였는지 간단한 답변 감사드리고요. 일단 저에게 있어서 가장 좋은 것 혹은 유토피아적인 것을 구현하고자 한다면은, 일단 저에게는 공간의 필드, 그러니까 공간에 대한 표현이죠. 공간에 대한 표현을 보통은 물체를 놓는다든지 혹은 바닥을 구현한다든지 하늘을 구현한다는 것이 될 수 있겠는데, 저에게는 이것이 약간 물리적인 이론을 좀 접목시키고 싶었습니다. 그래서 예를 들어서 공간의 휘어짐, 그러니까 제가 정확하게 기술적인 것은 모르겠는데, 유니티나 이런 3D 환경에서 보통은 공간을 굉장히 직선화돼서 표현하겠지만은, 사실 물리적으로 봤을 때는 아인슈타인이나 이런 양자장이나 중력장에 하면 공간이 휘어져 있다고 볼 수 있는데, 그것이 휘어짐을 구현한다면은 사실 보여지는 그래픽적인 감각이나 우리의 감각이 또 달라지지 않을까. 실제로 예를 들면은 블랙홀을 구현을 한다든지 이 공간 안에서, 그러기 위해서는 상당히 단지 블랙홀을 구현한다는 게 그래픽적인 요소를 구현하는 것이 아니라 실적인 물리적으로 제가 지나가는 동안 제 몸이 블랙홀로 빨려 들어간다든지 하는 그런 현상을 한번 구현해 보고 싶다는 게 어떻게 보면 이상적인 거였죠. 그래서 그러한 현상을 한번 실제로 보고 싶기도 했었고요. 그러니까 필드라는 것의 의미가 결국은 단지 공간을 복사해서 현실의 공간을 복사해서 놓겠다는 것이 아니라 이 공간 자체를 현재 우리 현실의 것과 시뮬레이션 한다는 정도의 의미가 저에겐 이상적인 것으로 생각이 들었습니다. 네.
Interpreter, please.
As a matter of fact, this question was the one that I felt most difficult to address, and I would like to thank other people for addressing this question. To me, when it comes to the realization of my version of utopia, I think it was about the expression of space. In the physical space, you could place a certain object, or you could try to realize the flooring or realize the sky. But what I wanted to do was to actually apply the theory of physics in my works. For instance, if you think about a space, how do I express space that's bent? Because in the 3D environment, most oftentimes the space is expressed as straight lines, but if in terms of the physical theory, the theory of physics, according to physicists like Einstein, the space is not really all straight lined. It's more like bent or curved. And what I wanted to do was to express that in the virtual space so that people could actually feel that sense of physicality or the space. For instance, I could try to create a black hole in the virtual space, but not just with the use of graphical elements, but with the use of physical theory in expressing that. For instance, what I would want to do was to actually recreate this experience of people feeling that they are actually getting sucked into a black hole. So that is my idealized element of this physical space. And regarding the meaning of a field, I don't think of it as copy pasting the actual physical space in real life. What I want to do is to create an idealized, simulated version of the space in reality.
Thank you for the answer, Jung-ho. Okay, although Jenny has said that we will don't need to include her so much because she's really shy in speaking in public, but I would really like to know her opinion. Hello, Janice.
Hello, Janice.
Yes.
All right. I have a question for Janice, and you can take some time to think about it. Did you notice after visiting 23 studios, did you notice that a lot of these Singaporean artists, their studios are actually quite rooted in terms of physical structure? For example, Uric, for example, Chung Art here, who is HDB, even our dear Brian, HDB, and Debbie is a train, and very physical structures. Whereas the Korean artists, our dear Mr. Jung Ho, a lot of landscapes. Like Anna Kim, Tingy is a house, but the Korean artist seems to have a certain sense of expanse. This is just my thoughts. What do you think?
That's
Interpreter. Sorry, interpreter.
네, 지금 이제 김정현 큐레이터님께 질문을 드리고 싶은데 23개의 스튜디오를 가 보셨지 않습니까? 그런데 저 같은 경우에는 이제 싱가포르 작가들 같은 경우에는 물리적인 구조에 조금 더 근간을 두고 있다라고 느꼈습니다. 유릭도 그렇고 청학도 그렇고 HDB를 활용을 했고 브라이언도 HDB를 활용을 했고 데비도 어떤 물리적인 구조에 기반을 해서 스튜디오를 꾸린 반면 한국 작가들 같은 경우에는 박정원 선생님도 그렇고 어떤 랜드스케이프, 광경을 이용을 하셨거든요. 애나킴도 그렇고 물론 집을 활용을 하기는 했습니다만 한국 분들의 경우에는 조금 더 이렇게 조금 공간이 더 넓은 그러한 공간감을 활용을 하셨는데 여기에 대해서 어떻게 생각을 하십니까?
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you.
굉장히 예, 흥미로운 지점이고 저는 인식하지 못했는데 싱가포르 큐레이터들이 그 점을 지적한다는 게 굉장히 놀랍지만 또 재미있는 것 같습니다.
Actually, I myself haven't recognized such a difference between Singaporean and Korean artists myself, and the fact that the curators of Singapore are pointing that out for me is quite surprising, but at the same time quite interesting as well.
어쩌면 이 문제는 제가 답을 하기보다는 그러니까 사회적이나 정치적인 역사 그런 바탕을 한번 들여다보는 것도 재미있는 연구가 될 수 있을 거라고 생각이 드는데요. 저는 이번 질문에서 escape from reality라고 했던 부분이 굉장히 escape from reality에 초점을 맞춰서 이야기를 하고 싶습니다.
So maybe that's the issue that probably is not suitable for me to address right here. Maybe it could become a good subject for a future research as to his social, political, or historical background that could explain the difference between these two nations' artists. I myself want to focus my comments on this idea of escaping from reality.
Excellent answer.
Okay, thank you, Janice. I'm going to ask the last question before we open the floor for questions. I'm going back to Chung Ai. How is your world, your cloud studio, better than the real world? Interpreter, please.
Excuse me, can you repeat the question, please?
The question for Chung Ai is, how is his cloud studio better than the real world?
예, 정학에게 질문을 드리고 싶은 부분은 클라우드 스튜디오가 실제 스튜디오보다 어떤 면에서 더 나은 게 있을까요?
Chung Ai, please.
Okay, so yep. So how is better? So I think better is I wouldn't say it's better, but I think something different that maybe to some could be better is if you remember that day during my tour, you know how the whole idea is to bring the plants together to build a community garden, right? So, but at the same time we also realize how we can so-called litter or throw the plants around and without much consequences. So I think maybe not just specific to our studio, but there are certain things that we can do in the virtual world that we otherwise wouldn't be able to do in the real world. So it's not exactly better, and it's not say it's a bad thing also, but I think there are a variety of things that can be done. That it can be seen as having fun, it can be seen as experimenting or exploring the possibilities. Of course, in the real world, if you just throw things around, you get, I guess, especially in Singapore, you get punished, you get fined, a lot of things can happen. But I feel in my studio, we can have a little bit of fun, of course, without causing harm to anyone. Yeah, so I think that's something better, and also not specific is in terms of why I do it in the virtual world is how we can define physics and things like gravity. We can easily carry things around, we can build more stuff together. Of course, as experienced that day, that there can also be glitches in the virtual world. So I wouldn't say that there are things that could be so-called better. There are things that also they are just different. We have to kind of adapt to it to kind of get used and work around it. So just as what we deal with problems and challenges and obstacles in the real world. Yeah, so that's kind of what I feel working here.
Okay, interpreter, please.
네, 제가 생각하기로는 뭐 더 낫다기보다는 좀 다른 측면이 있다라는 차원에서 말씀을 드리는 것이 더 나을 것 같습니다. 예를 들어서 실제 현실 세계에서는 뭐 실질적으로 어떤 식물을 이제 키우고 그 가든을 조성하고 하는 것들이 제약이 있을 수 있습니다만 물리적인 공간에서는 그것보다 더 많은 것을 할 수 있는 가능성이 열린다. 실제로는 불가능했던 것들을 할 수 있다라는 측면에서 조금 달라진 측면이 있고 이런 측면이 더 낫다라고도 볼 수는 있을 것 같습니다. 그래서 어떤 실험을 시도한다라든지 어떤 가능성을 타진할 수 있는 부분이 훨씬 더 많다라는 것이 좀 다르다고 생각을 하고요. 가령 싱가포르 같은 경우 껌을 씹으면 이제 벌금을 내야 되는데 가상공간에는 그렇지 않아도 되기 때문에 조금 더 재미있는 그런 시도들을 할 수 있는 측면이 있고요. 그리고 실제로 물리적인 그런 물리학의 이론이라든지 어떤 중력이라든지 이런 거에 제약이 없이 가상공간에서 저희가 뭐를 구현할 수 있는 측면이 있다라는 것도 조금 다르다라고 생각을 합니다. 그래서 더 많은 것들을 함께 구축을 할 수 있는 측면이 있습니다. 그런 제약이 없기 때문에 따라서 더 낫다라기보다는 다르다라는 차원에서 접근을 해야 된다고 저는 생각을 합니다. 그리고 현실 세계에 있어서의 어떤 문제라든지 장애물이라든지 이런 거를 대응하는 차원에 있어서도 가상공간에서 더 많은 것을 할 수가 있습니다.
Thank you, interpreter. So I'm going to ask the same questions to Brian. So how is your cloud studio world better than the real world?
똑같은 질문을 브라이언 선생님께 드리겠는데요. 클라우드 스튜디오가 실제 세계보다 더 나은 게 무엇일까요?
Yeah, I'm gonna apologize in advance because like, oh my god, the renovation in my house is going crazy now. But anyway, I agree very much with Chunai actually. Like, I don't think of it as like a sort of better world, but like really it's just a different place where you can like, like do different kind of things. There's like, I guess like doing things that you can't do in the physical reality, whereas like, there's also pros and cons on both sides. Like, for example, like the con of like that my cloud studio is that there's actually a lot of things that I want to implement, but like I'm very limited by like my own skills in like creating a virtual environment. And like if this is like a physical space, if I have the resources, I mean in the physical space you are limited by your resources, but if I have the resources I can also create something similar, but with like different kind of interaction as well, like such as like buttons instead of like in the virtual world where like you have those kind of like virtual buttons, I guess. So yeah, that's my take.
네.
Interpreter, please.
네, 저는 조금 전에 말씀하셨던 정학님의 의견에 공감을 합니다. 이제 클라우드 스튜디오에서의 세계가 더 낫다라기보다는 좀 다른 공간이라는 측면에서 인식을 해야 될 것 같습니다. 그래서 다른 행위를 할 수 있게 되는 것이거든요. 물리적으로는 가능하지 않았던 그 실제에서는 가능하지 않았던 부분들이 가능해진다라는 측면이 있고, 사실은 이 두 세계가 장단점이 있다라고 생각을 합니다. 클라우드 스튜디오에서 제가 느꼈던 단점이라고 한다면, 제가 그 클라우드 스튜디오 안에서 뭔가 굉장히 많은 것을 구현을 하고 싶은데 이 가상 환경을 조작하는 제 능력의 그 기술의 부족으로 인해서 제약을 느꼈다라는 점이거든요. 만약에 그냥 현실의 물리적인 공간이었다면은 제가 얼마든지 자원을 동원을 할 수 있다면 원하는 것을 만들 수가 있었을 텐데, 좀 그렇게 서로 상호작용을 하는 부분이 달라졌다라는 것이 좀 다르다고 생각을 합니다.
Thank you
I
so
would like
much,
to add.
interpreter.
Yes, I would like to add also, cause like I'm trying to create a dreamscape, so I'm actually trying to translate the feeling of like being in a dream to like some kind of a reality, be it virtual or physical, right? So there's definitely going to be like gaps because like of how we are not able to like one-to-one kind of interpret how the dream feels like. So in a way, like all this I mean, what I'm trying to say is like there is, I guess, there's a lot of differences, like I guess, in the way I'm trying to present the space. Yeah.
Interpreter, please.
그리고 제가 하려는 거는 이제 드림스케이프를 만들려는 것인데, 그게 무엇이냐면 제가 꿈을 꾸는 그런 느낌을 실질적으로, 현실적으로 그것을 느끼도록 하는 전환의 작업이라고 생각을 합니다. 그런데 이것이 이제 1대1로 모든 것이 전환이 되고 해설이 되는 것은 아니기 때문에 실질적으로는 가상공간에서 저희가 이런 것들을 제시하는 방법이 상당히 달라진다고 생각을 합니다.
Thank you so much. Right now, we will open the questions to the floor. Artists on stage, you can ask each other questions as well, and audiences off the stage, you can ask questions as well. Interpreter, please.
Any questions,
이어서
please feel free.
이제 질의응답 시간을 갖도록 하겠습니다. 그 누구라도 서로 작가분들 사이에서도 좋고 질문을 해주십시오.
Does anyone have any questions? Or Janice, you have any questions?
Okay.
Okay. I think I want to ask one questions to maybe Jongho in this case, because your world, it's not specifically based on physics of the real world, but heavily influenced by quantum physics. Could you share a little bit about this world and how is this maybe better than the real world? Interpreter, please.
네, 박정원 선생님께 질문을 드리고 싶은데요. 지금 구현하신 그런 가상 세계를 보면 이것은 실제 세계의 어떤 물리적인 그런 속성에 기반했다기보다는 이제 양자역학에 영향을 굉장히 많이 받았다고 생각을 하는데, 그렇다면은 이러한 가상 세계가 실제보다 어떤 면에서 더 낫다고 생각을 하십니까?
이 질문은 아까 두 분 작가님들하고 거의 비슷하다고 저는 생각합니다. 그러니까 낫다라기보다는 가능성 혹은 다른 방식으로 구현이 가능하다라는 것에 저는 좀 더 초점을 맞추고 싶었고요. 그러니까 이 세계를, 그러니까 제 스튜디오를 구현한 것은 결국은 현실 세계를 좀 더 보고 싶은, 그러니까 현실 세계의 양자역 중력장, 뭐 그런 필드에 대한 것을 실제로 보고 싶은 것을 저는 이제 그거에 대한 반대급부로 이 스튜디오에서 구현을 해서 제가 한번 보고 싶었던 거죠. 그 필드를 실제로 우리가 볼 수는 없기 때문에, 그리고 물리적인 현상을 실제로는 볼 수 없기 때문에 그것이 스튜디오 안에서 어떻게 구현될 수 있는 것인가. 그래서 좋다라기보다는 그런 가능성 혹은 대체 공간 혹은 시뮬레이션 되는 스페이스라고 생각을 하고 이 스튜디오 작업을 했던 것 같습니다. 그러니까 물론 저도 이제 기술적인 한계가 있어서 그것을 세세하게 구현 못한 것이 있지만은, 만약 이런 기술적인 구현이 상당히 자유롭게만 가능하다면은 이런 시뮬레이션 된 것들을 좀 더 구현할 수 있게 된다면은 제법 혹은 괜찮은 공간을 만들어낼 수 있지 않을까, 혹은 우리가 생각했던 물리적인 현상을 좀 더 다른 물리적인 현상조차도 구현할 수 있지 않을까라는 생각을 하게 됩니다. 네.
Interpreter, please.
So, I think I would have to echo the answers already given by the two other artists, because I don't necessarily feel that this virtual world is a better one than the real world. It's more about the possibilities that we can explore in this virtual world and different approaches that we can take to implement our ideas. And that's where I want to focus. As I was trying to create my cloud studio, what I wanted to do was to actually realize the quantum physics theories in this virtual space. I wanted to create the concept of field that's suggested by the quantum physics, and I wanted to actually see for myself how I can implement that in the virtual space. This physical phenomenon is not something that's visible in real life, but I wanted to implement that in the virtual space and explore the possibility of how I can do that in this alternative space or a space of simulations. Of course, I also faced technical difficulties myself, and I couldn't implement all the details of my ideas. But if I were not bound by such technical limitations, I think it would have been great to be able to implement such physical concepts in this simulated space, which would have created a great space for us, so that we could actually literally see and feel the physical phenomena.
Oh, that's a good answer. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jung Ho.
And
Thank you.
I really like
Thanks so much.
I really like the answer when it comes to most of our artists actually say that it's not about better or worse or anything, and it's a place where they are creating possibilities. And I think that is a really good wrap up to our day 2 symposium with the Fireside Chat 2. I would like to thank Brian, Chung Ai, Jung Ho. I would also like to thank Janice and the interpreter, and thank you all the audience who's watching on the floor, and also thank you to the YouTube audience. We have not forgotten you, and we want to say thank you for staying with us. This wraps up our Pluritopia Symposium, but it doesn't wrap up some of our master classes. Before we sign out and say goodbye, I would like to hand it over to Lei to thank everybody, and also to talk about the quick master classes. Come on, Lei. Come on.
Hello, everybody. This is not the end of our Pluritopia Biennale, because this afternoon at 2 p.m. Singapore time, 3 p.m. Korean time, we have our masterclass number 2 from Funny Revenge, all the way from Korea. This will be done via Zoom, and their masterclass is on how can we connect and separate the real and virtual world, pertaining especially to art and education, and using VRChat as a tool for that. And the third masterclass and our final masterclass is from Serial Co Singapore. They will talk about the web, the third installment.
Excellent. So we have 2 master classes, everybody. And before we sign out, we will need to thank NAC for commissioning Pluritopia, and definitely the Arts Council Korea ARCO for supporting with all their hearts, especially sending us 2 really good curators, which is Janice Kim and Sunga Lee.
Janice. Woohoo!
Shout out to all our Korean artists who believed in us, and especially to the Singapore artists also who created. You tried something new. We went on a journey together, everybody. This is not the end of Pluritopia Biennale. This is only the beginning. We have many more programs and all that lined up for you guys. Thank you. And with that, we are signing out. Spang and Lei and Janice Kim signing out.
Bye, everyone, and see you later.